Hi, I'm Sandy with Lightning Tools, and I'm here again with Brett. Hi, how are you?
Doing very well, thank you, Sandy. Yeah, yourself?
Very good, thanks.
Now, very good.
Yes, now very good. That's true. Yeah, yeah. Coronavirus finally got me a couple weeks ago, and been kind of under the weather since then. Well, for a while, but I'm feeling much better now,
Cool.
as long as I don't
Yeah,
talk too much.
I touch wood. Knock on wood. I've not yet had it, but I'm hearing lots of people now that are
Mm,
getting it for the first time,
mm,
and yeah, I feel like it might be out to get me at some point
It's
soon.
probably
So
these new variants, I guess. And yeah.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, fingers crossed. I don't, but I'm sure
Yeah,
one day I
yeah,
will.
I hope not because yeah, it was no fun at all.
hmm Cool. So, I mean, yeah, since well, so last month, I
Mhm.
guess we wrapped up with Kudzu,
Mm,
the release, which is uh, going really well. So we
mhm.
have the Kudzu tool, just in case you've not been watching or listening to the recent
What?
episodes. Yeah,
Somebody.
exactly. That's the info path slash a few other things as well. Migration tool where you can migrate to lots of different forms, applications like Power Apps and so on. But we've partnered with Kudzu to be able to offer one for a version of it for Lightning Forms. So yeah, you can take your InfoPath forms and migrate them across to SharePoint lists with a Lightning Forms design. So saving you a tremendous amount of development time
Super cool.
and getting going with your form. So if that is of interest, we actually did a webinar. So go to lightningtools.com and click onto webinars, and you'll be able to watch back that webinar, see the product in action. And I've done a few demonstrations actually for
Mm,
potential customers, and if anybody's open to having a demonstration, and you know, sometimes it can look like a bit too good to be true
mhm.
if we just use one of our InfoPath forms. So feel free, you know, to set up a demo, shoot me across an InfoPath form that you have if you've got the XSN file, and we'll use that in the demo. So you'll be able to see, you know, how successful that is, and if it is, obviously, then yeah, you know it works.
Mhm.
So
And actually, this isn't only for people who have InfoPath still.
no,
I mean,
correct.
it could be just a regular Word document which everybody has those probably.
They're great fun as well to fill out, aren't they? When somebody
Right,
sends you one of
right.
those, so you get like this built-in thing where you can fill out the form and then you go and correct all your formatting afterwards. It's awesome. so, so
Right.
yeah, there's Word documents, there's PDFs as well, Excel workbooks, and
Mhm.
uh, Kudzu can also migrate your data as well. So it's not just all about the
Yeah,
form
that's super
design.
cool.
So if you've got completed InfoPath forms in a form library with the content there, we can migrate that content. We can also migrate yeah, the Excel table as
Mm,
well into a form. So lots of different scenarios like that
mm.
we can work with. But it's Lightning Conductor month,
Right.
so
Yep.
we have a new release of the Lightning Conductor that is due out imminently. So we're going up a major version. We've got three main new features to talk about in this major version. So we're going up to 6.0,
Mhm.
which is great. And in that version, we have, I'm going to start off with the coolest feature, which is a brand new roll-up engine. But just before we get into that, let's just talk about briefly what the Lightning Conductor does. So rewind a decade or so, and
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
what the tool did back then was aggregate across site collections, SharePoint lists, and libraries, which is probably today still the number one reason why people are
Yes.
looking for that product. They want to roll up,
Yes.
roll down, roll across, whatever, aggregate content into a view where you've not had to get your hands dirty in JSON or anything like that. You can basically build out a really nice view with conditional formatting, grouping, aggregate functions. You can specify your data formats,
Mm,
etc. So that's really the sort of basics of the product, but it's grown obviously a lot over the last 15 years or so. So as well as being able to roll up SharePoint lists and libraries in a modern interface, so it's built into the SharePoint framework nowadays, you can also aggregate through search results, which is very powerful. So the two main I guess, roll-up engines when you're aggregating from SharePoint lists to libraries is either to use the client-side object model, in which case the Lightning Connector is expected to iterate through the items that you want to roll up, that it's configured to roll up from, and display those in real time, which is great because you actually get pretty good performance. You get real time updates. So if somebody's completed a task or checked out a document or whatever that you're rolling up, you'll see that obviously when you visit the page that contains the Lightning Connector. So the alternative is to use search, and that's really when performance needs to be optimal. We want to display the results immediately. So it uses the search index instead, and then we can go against things like content type or recently accessed content, whatever you want to define it as. And again, you get to build out those views using the SP grid view, as I described a minute ago. So there's those two are the main roll-up engine providers, but then we've also over the last couple of years introduced Graph. So that's the Microsoft Graph, which gives you the ability to connect to different entities such as OneDrive and Teams. You can connect to Planner and Microsoft To Do, all those different apps that live inside of Microsoft 365 that are queryable, if that's a word, through
I think so.
the Lightning Conductor. Yeah, so or sorry, through the Microsoft Graph. So you can connect to those and display them. And that leads to some powerful scenarios because, you know, there is loads of different places where you can actually create tasks, for example, in Microsoft 365. So there's task lists, there's To Do, there's Planner, probably Microsoft lists and so on too. So with the Lightning Connector, you can bring all of those into one web part with different views, so you don't have to go hunting around for your tasks all the time. You know, they could be filtered to show your tasks and that sort of thing. So some good scenarios there that you could save yourself a tremendous amount of time when you're searching for that content. There's also a Microsoft 365 group view that you can create, or roll-up provider, I should say. So you can, it's also using Graph, but you can access the files such as documents or whatever is defined inside those Microsoft 365 groups. So you're configuring it. Calendars, agendas and that sort of thing. So yeah, you can connect to those, and that's just really from a configuration standpoint. It makes it easier because you're now browsing where you want to aggregate from by selecting the actual Microsoft 365 groups. So it provides us with that. So they're the sort of roll-up providers, and then there's different ways of displaying it. So there's the grid view, which I described, which is no code, just simply define what columns you want and the conditional formatting and so on. But in addition to that, you've also got JSON views, XSLT views, which is kind of backwards compatibility, and adaptive card views as well. So starting off with JSON views, we've got some built in that you can just go ahead and use as they are. So there's modern calendar views, there's agenda views, there's tile views, etc. So you can use those. You could also customize them if you wish. The XSLT views similar, but again, really for backwards compatibility. And then we've also got the adaptive cards, which if you use the adaptive card designer, you'll be able to figure out, how you can lay out some little cards which are useful for things like tasks and so on. And again, we've got some of those built in. So that's basically catching you up on the Lightning Conductor as to what it is. So what's new? A new roll-up provider to add to the collection of 4 roll-up providers is the external Graph Connector, which is awesome. And we started off life as a company really around business connectivity services and bringing in external data into SharePoint. That's effectively what we did from day one. And now we're doing that again, but through the Lightning Conductor and the external Graph Connector.
Which is new. It's a pretty new feature that Microsoft has rolled out.
That's correct, because we innovate. So we can connect to lots of different things like Oracle, SQL on premises, Jira, Salesforce.com, all sorts of different data sources through an external Graph Connector.
Even like your website or something.
Yeah, that's cool. And again, all those views you can apply. So you can use the grid view. You could also use a JSON view. But what's really cool is if you've played around with the external Graph Connectors, when you configure an external Graph Connector, some of them like Jira will actually come with an adaptive card view. for search results and so on. And you can actually select to use that JSON in the Lightning Conductor when you're using that external graph connector as a data source, rather than configuring the view as well. So you get a nicely laid out view, which you could also customize if you wanted to as well. So yeah,
but you can build your own as too.
Yeah, yeah,
if you're
you
building
could build your own from scratch, yeah, or like I said, just use the grid
Mm.
view if you want, with conditional formatting and that sort of thing also.
Very cool.
So yeah, it's a great way to connect to external data. The business is in control of that because they need to make the external connector available and configure it. So it's not necessarily something that business users can just go ahead and start bringing in external data into your SharePoint environment. You know, the business has to define that, make sure that connection exists, define who's got rights to see that data and so on, and
It's
then
very similar, really, the concept in there too, to the business connectivity services, where the
exactly,
business would create the external content type, and then people could use it.
yeah, yeah, exactly right. So yeah, and that's then a great way of, you know, again, bringing in information that is important to maybe a department of people or a team
Mm,
of people, or the company, into the SharePoint environment,
right.
or even the Teams environment if
Mm,
you're working in
true.
Teams as well. So yeah, that's a brand new feature.
Yep. You'll be showing that
Again,
in the webinar.
will be, yeah. So that's next week, 16th of
Mhm.
March. So that's going to be 4 p.m. GMT, but I think the US has changed its hours because you do that
Right.
before we do, or
Yep. Yes.
something. So yeah, apparently we can't sync up on these things.
I-
So so yeah, we change our clocks towards the end of March.
mm,
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's an hour later for you, put it that way. So
yes. Yes. It'll be noon next Thursday, Eastern.
yeah, yeah, because you spring forwards.
Yes.
Correct. All right. So yeah, we'll be taking a look at that then. Now, there's
Yep.
also some other features. So I'll mention what's now internally being referred to as the magic button. So what the magic button will do, if you have configured the Lightning Conductor with the client-side object model, which is easier than using
Mhm,
search,
mhm.
admittedly, because you don't have to worry about um, some obscure
Like,
column names that are
right, your
basically
search
managed
schema.
properties and so
Mhm.
on. Yeah, use search schema. So configuring the Lightning Conductor to go from search is a bit more complex, and you know, it's not something that your average business user is going to have a good understanding of how to do. So what we can do is configure it using the client-side object model. So you could say, yeah, from, you know, this sales site, this marketing site, and whatever, I want to aggregate tasks or documents into one view. You could configure that nice and easily using the client-side object model, and then you can click the magic button, and that will convert it into search for you, giving you better performance
Yeah,
and so on, that what you would have with the client-side object model.
yeah, I'm very
Um,
excited about that
yeah, that should be great.
because
Fantastic.
it's fairly frequently that customers will come to us in a support question, and they really need, maybe they're trying to aggregate huge volumes of content, and so search is more appropriate for that. And
Yes. Hmm.
but they've done it with the object model and then come to realize that it's just not really quite performing as they want it to, and so then it does get into quite a big explanation about how to switch that over to search. Is not super difficult, but as you say, it's not for your average business user necessarily. They'd have to
Correct.
know things about SharePoint Search and so on. So yeah, this is very exciting, I think, for
Yeah,
customers.
should make it a lot easier. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's two of the features, and I've just getting
The
mental block.
search preview, I think,
Search
is
preview.
the other.
Sorry. Yes, thank you. That was the other one that we were doing. So yeah, the search preview. Again, with the search and the complexity of it, you can configure all of these things using the managed properties and so on from search. Hit finish and realize that either you're not seeing any results, or yeah, you didn't understand the columns correctly,
Mhm.
or what have you. So yeah, whilst you're inside the advanced configuration pane of the Lightning Conductor, you can actually hit a preview, and actually not just with search, but also with the
Yep.
external graph connector and so on as well. you can hit that preview, see what results you're going to get. So there's no surprises when you hit finish. You're not having to jump in and out of that configuration in order to be able to see the results.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I think that's very cool too.
yeah, definitely.
Well, I think everything about the Lightning Conductor is cool. It's still my favorite thing.
Yeah, it's a superb product, as are all of our products.
Well, yes, but it's superber.
Okay. Okay. That's not a word, is it? So fantastic. So yeah, if you've not registered for the webinar, get registering. That'll take place in a week's time, or just over a week.
Just about.
Yeah. So that's next Thursday. Register even if you can't attend it, because
Right.
you'll get the link to watch it back.
Right.
And yeah, perhaps next week or next time we do a chat, we'll be able to show some of that too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that sounds good. Right.
awesome.
Maybe
Well,
I'll be able to talk a little better next time too.
yes. Yeah, sorry for doing all the talking, but that was by request.
Yes, that's true.
So if you were here to listen to Sandy, I'm sorry. All right, wonderful. Well, great catching up with you again, Sandy,
Yeah,
and
same.
speak to you soon.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.